All right, so you've seen this expanded place value chart already in these slides. You saw it earlier, and I asked you to use it to represent some decimal numbers. Just as a reminder, it's just like the one we used before, but we've got our decimal point here, and then we've expanded the column so that we have tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. So you can use whatever you want to represent your digits. I've just got these centimeter cubes that I'm going to be using. And what we're going to do is we are going to model the standard algorithm for adding decimals. It works exactly the same way as it did for whole numbers. As we saw before, you put your numbers on the chart, put everything in the right place value, then you just put everything together and carry over when you need to, regroup. Exact same thing as what kids have done before. Reinforcing the visual model and putting everything in its places and doing the regrouping just helps to remind them that this is something they've seen before. So this is a great way to start. And then once they've done this, several times, they're usually ready to move right into the standard algorithm without a lot of extra work. So the two numbers that we are adding together are 345 and 21 thousandths. So I'm going to build that one up here. 3 hundreds, 40 tens, 5 ones, and let's see, and 21 thousandths. So I don't have any tenths. I have 2 hundredths and 1 thousandth. So that's my first number, and then I'll build the second one right underneath it. That is 15 and 85 hundredths. So let's see, 15, I've got 1, 10, oops, 5 ones, and 85 hundredths. So I've got 8 tenths. I am really missing those 10 frames right now. There's no room for them on here though. And 5 hundredths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So one thing that we want kids to do, and let me just write these numbers down real quick so we have a reference. We're doing 345 and 21 thousandths plus 15 and 85 hundredths. One thing we want kids to do when they're working with the decimals is we want them to use their estimation skills. Sometimes kids can get lost in the digits. They forget what the decimal point means. It's really important for them to understand the relative sizes of these numbers. So for example, this number, if we round it to the nearest whole number, it's really close to 345. If we round this number to the nearest whole number, it's really close to 16. So this whole thing that I'm adding, even though it has all these digits, it's really close to, the answer I will get should be really close to the answer for 345 plus 16, which is like 361. So if I get something really different from 361, I'm going to know that I made a mistake somewhere. Maybe I didn't have my digits in the right column. Maybe I didn't do something right in the process. Typically when kids make mistakes when they're adding and subtracting decimals, it's that they didn't get the columns lined up exactly. So starting with a model like this where you have everything in columns and you're very careful about regrouping, that can really help them to understand that keeping the place value in the right place is really important. So now I'm just going to add these up just like we've done in the past. So I only have 1,000. I'm going to mush them all together. I only have 1 thousandth here, so I have a 1 here. Great. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hundredths. Okay, in my tenth column, I've got 8. Okay, good. So far, so good. In my ones column, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so now I remember from all the math I've done before, that if I have 10 in this column, I can regroup and move 1 to the next column over. So this block that I just placed here represents the 10 ones. Here's a 10. So I have nothing left. I have a 0 in my ones column. Okay, in my tens column, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And in my hundreds column, I've got 3. So my answer is 360 and 871 thousandths. So again, very similar to what kids have done before with the standard algorithm. Similarly, we can have them subtract, just to remind you the way it works with subtraction. So let's say we're going to subtract, I'm just going to do something, an example that's a little bit smaller, 23 and 5/100 minus 10 and 9/10. Okay, so remember that what I'm going to do is I'm going to build my first number. So 23 0/10 5/100. All right. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 10 and 9/10 away. So starting here, I want to subtract 9/10. I don't have any tenths in this column, so I'm going to have to regroup. So that means I'm going to take a 1 from the ones column and replace it with 10 in the tenths column. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Here we go. And now I can subtract my 9/10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you'll remember that when we did this before, we did this as a takeaway model. Okay, now I'm up to here. In the ones place, I'm not subtracting anything. All right. And in the tens place, I'm subtracting 1. So just to write down what I did, what have I got left? I've got 5 in the 100ths place. I've got 1 in the 10ths place. I've got 2 in the ones place and 1 in the tens place. So 23 and 5/100 minus 10 and 9/10 is equal to 12 and 15/100. Exactly the same thing as we did before, but with a few more columns added.